Greetings to all of you, friends, family, and travelers of the night. Thank you for stopping in to another episode of the DJP, and you're going to be glad you did, because on this episode, my guest is author of the Mosaic, Daniel Bruce Levin. Now, this guy's had a super fascinating life, and he's made a lot of interesting choices. He had the opportunity at a very young age to be next in line to run a billion-dollar corporation, which he incidentally turned down. He didn't like the terms of the deal, and after listening to this episode, I don't think you'll blame him on why he did it. He's done a lot of stuff, man, and he's just a really fascinating dude. I had a super good time talking to him. It really changed a lot of perspective for me. I was going through some weird shit in my own head, some self-doubt issues and imposter syndrome shit coming up. It got pretty ugly for a few days, but it comes up and we work through it, and we sit with it. And that's what we do. Just, you can't lose sight of that. You have to just be in it. God, it's ugly sometimes. But what else are you going to do? Anyway, I'm not going to ramble on too much. So without further ado, Daniel Bruce Levin.
You might catch yourself sliding in and out of a hallucinatory state. Just relax and enjoy it. Just relax and enjoy it.
This is an experiment in mind formation. Information, forming, controlling, operating your mind and your brain. We're using digital techniques to overload, scramble, confuse, unfocus your mind. The natural state of the brain is chaos. Chaos is beautiful.
So how you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm good. How about you? Caught in the craziness of our country going through this crazy moment.
It's certainly a strange time.
It really is. Really is. So anyway, because of COVID, we're all sitting here not too involved in it, except for those who aren't sitting there involved in it. Where in the world are you located, Justin?
I'm in Pensacola, Florida.
Pensacola, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So how are things around you and with all that's going on?
You wouldn't know anything was going on.
That's a good place to live then.
Yeah, it's not terrible. I used to not care for it much. As I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, I like it. I'm in North County of San Diego, and same thing. You wouldn't have any idea anything's going on. Maybe a couple cars go by and honk their horn, or 15 people stand on a street corner and hold signs. But other than that, nothing much to write home to mom about.
Right. Well, that's good. So, your story is fascinating.
Okay.
Absolutely fascinating. Just going over your bio that you sent me. I'd love to hear it in your words, just how you arrived at where you're at now.
Happy to. Are we ready to do that?
Let's do it.
So, thank you, first of all, for saying it's a fascinating story. I think I knew that it was not a story like most other people that I knew. And something, I always wanted to have a story that was like everybody else's. I always wished that I could live a block or two from my mom's house and dad's house, and then my kids could grow up with their grandparents nearby. But that got taken from me at the age of 13 when my dad passed away. I lost my dad, who was my hero. And because of that, it made me, as a 13-year-old kid, start to look at the world differently than the rest of my friends. My friends were all interested in sports and girls and all that stuff, which I was too, don't get me wrong. But I was also interested in why in the world would somebody that I loved and adored more than anybody else, how is it possible that my hero was taken from me for no apparent reason?
Right.
And so it just troubled me. And I wanted to figure it out. And then 2 years later, my mom passed away on the same day, the same time. And that day was July 4th. So I started to make up a story. There's like a cloud of smoke going all through you, brother. I love it. So I made up a story that the reason it happened, it was on Independence Day, and what my mom and dad were trying to tell me is you got to be independent. And that was the message of them going on that day. It wasn't until 60 years, almost, no, not 60 years, 40 years later, that I realized they weren't born on Independence Day. They died on Independence Day.
Right.
The message wasn't that they were telling me to be independent. They were telling me independence is death. To try and go through the world on your own is death. And I lived my whole life trying to go through the world on my own. When I wrote the Mosaic, which was basically the fableized story of my life. So if you think my life is fascinating, I'd love you to read the book because I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a fableized story of my life. And what happened is Mo, the main character in the story, he loses his parents. And he asks the adults, where are my parents? Where are they? And the parents tell him just kindly, they're in a place called heaven. So he sets out in search of the place called heaven. Mm. What I realized in looking back on that now is that all the opportunities that I had, most people would have thought were heaven on earth. I had the opportunity to be mentored and learned and guided by my uncle into a multi-billion-dollar company that he had started.
Wow. And
he didn't have any sons. And in 50 years ago, there wasn't a time that you gave your company to your daughters for some reason. Thank God that's changing.
Right.
But at those days, you gave it to your son. And so he looked at me when we came to live with them, which we didn't know them very well. Mm. They lived in the Midwest, and we lived in the East Coast. And so he said, I'm going to offer you something that's going to change your life. I'm going to watch you for a few days, for a few months. And I'm going to offer you something that's going to change your life if I see something in you. And a few months later, he said, I want you to come in and I want you to start at the bottom. And I want you to work your way up. You're going to start pushing a broom and you're going to work your way up to the top. I'll mentor you and make sure that in 15 years, you're 15 now, in 15 years, when you're 30, that's when I want to retire. You'll be running my company. He said, what do you think of that? I said, wow, what a kind, generous offer. I mean, who wouldn't love that? I mean, that's like, people would die for that offer.
Absolutely.
I said, but it took you a month and a half or 2 months to watch me to see if I was the right person. I'm just a kid. You're wise. I would like to take a year and watch you and see if I want to do what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me, he said, okay, that doesn't bode that well. 99.9% of the people would have said, where's the broom? I'll start today.
Right.
I said, just our rotten luck that I'm the 0.00001. And so a year later, he invited me out to lunch. And, as I tell the story now, a year later is a year later, and it all makes sense. And he invited me out to lunch. But a year later in the life of a 15-year-old kid is a long time. Yeah. And so he said, I'm taking you out to lunch. And he said at lunchtime, after our lunch came, he said, I want to know the answer to my question. I said, being the arrogant little snug punk that I was, I said, you're going to have to ask me a question first. And he said, so you forgot the question I asked you a year ago. I said, oh, no, I haven't forgotten that. I just didn't realize that this was the time. I didn't realize today was the day 1 year exactly later. Right. So he said, so do you have an answer? I said, sort of. I said, I have 3 questions for you. I think that when you answer those questions, we'll have a sense of what the answer is for both of us. I asked him those 3 questions, and at the end of those 3 questions, it turned out that wasn't for me to do. He excommunicated me, and I went to school, studied psychology. Mm-hmm. My mentor, my professor in psychology saw something in me, again, like my uncle saw something in me. He saw something in me. And he said, I want you to start organizational psychology with me. I had hair down to my waist, Justin. I said, Lou, what are you, crazy? Does it look like there's anything organizational in this guy? But, I see how short-sighted I was. Mm. Because 30 years later, I was working with organizations, helping them understand how to create cultures and how to build teams and how to do all that stuff that he wanted me to help him create.
Huh. I have a question.
Please.
What were the 3 questions that you asked your...
I was hoping I could slip those by you without you asking. No, but that's okay. So I observed him over the course of a year. Hmm. And on his birthday, I noticed there were about 400 people that came to our house on his birthday. His house, not my house. I say our house because I lived there, but it was his house. And I came up to him on his birthday and I said, boy, this must feel fabulous for you. To have a birthday party with 400 friends here to celebrate your birthday. How amazing, how good that must make you feel that these people love you like that. I said, do you remember what you said to me? He said, tell me what you think I said. I said, okay, I have a pretty strong memory. Tell me if I'm right. You said to me that none of these people are my friends, Danny. If I didn't have money, none of them would be here. They're here because they want my money. They're not here because they love me.
Right.
I said, is that true? He said, yeah, that's exactly what I said. I said, so my first question is, why would you want to give me that gift? Why would you want to give me the gift of not knowing that I can have friends, but thinking that everybody that liked me only because of my money?
Right.
He said, okay, that doesn't bode well. What's your second question? I said, say that I could do that. Say that I'm more sensitive or more open or more, I spend more time getting to know people and loving them, but I don't think I'll be able to because you're a super wise man. You know what to do. If you can't do it, why would I be able to do it? Hmm. But I remember sitting around the dining room table and your daughters were starting to date. And do you remember what you said to them? I said, let me paraphrase it for you. And again, tell me if I'm right. I said, you told them nobody's interested in you. They're interested in your last name. And the only reason they want to be with you is because of your last name. Just beware of that. I said, is that right? He said, absolutely, it's right. I would say it to him again today. I said, so say I could get over the hurdle of people not liking me and just liking me for my money.
Yeah.
Why would you want to give that gift to my children?
Right.
I don't want to give that gift to my children.
Who would?
Right? And so he said, okay, what's the third question? I said, you've been kind enough to tell me that you'll start me pushing a broom, which I think is a great way to start. And that I would work my way up and find my place where I got to the top of what I could do. And then you would mentor and bring me along to the top to be in your seat. I said, what a kind and generous offer. But in doing that, I'm going to see things that you probably haven't seen for a lot of years. And what if I saw things along the way that needed to be changed, things that needed to be fixed? What if I started talking and listening to people and they were telling me about unhappinesses or things that were going on? Would I have the authority to change those things to make them better? Mm-hmm. I said, do you remember what you told me? He said, I think you're going to tell me. And you've been spot on 2 times. Let's hear what you say. You said to me, Danny, if it ain't broke, why fix it? He said, that's what I'd say to you again. He said, how many billion-dollar companies have you built, Danny? Just let it be. And I said, I don't think I can do that. Because that's you. There's no space in this for me to be me.
Right.
There's no space in this for me to understand that my friends are my friends. My kids have friends that love them because they love them. My contribution to your business is because of things that I see. I said, is it clear to you where we're going? He said, I think so. He said, I have to excommunicate you. I said, of course I do. That's what you do to people you can't control with money. And I said, I understand that. And I'm so honored that you let me stay these couple of years in your house with you. Right. Or this year and so in her house. And I left. To their credit, they couldn't really excommunicate me. They tried, but they kept trying to help me out along the way. and they didn't want to excommunicate me, but they were just hurt by the decision I made.
Right. Understandably so.
Yeah, because they were giving me the world. They were giving me a world that you ask 1 million people if they want that opportunity, 1 million people say yes.
Right. Well, 999,999.
Maybe 0.99999. Right. They just got an oddball guy. Yeah. Most of the people would have said yes to that. So because of that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I admire your conviction.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And but something, Justin, when something isn't yours, and what I realized in writing the Mosaic, I was looking for this unconditional love that I felt from my mom and dad. Like I hear the way people grow up, and I understand that people have trouble youth growing up.
Right.
Maybe my parents died before I could have experienced those problems, and maybe I was saved from all that because I was still just a kid. But I didn't grow up that way. I grew up in a house where my dad worked hard, didn't make very much money. My mom worked hard, but always came home and always made sure there was milk and cookies on the table for us. And she made dinners every night for us. We sat around the table, we laughed, and my dad would sing, and my mom would croon after him as if he was some, Frank Sinatra or something. But it was how what we didn't have money we had in love,
right?
And there was a lot of love in our house. And the only problem was that it got taken too quickly.
Yeah.
And I was looking for that love. I wasn't looking for the money. I couldn't care less about the money. My heaven was to find that unconditional love again, that situation where that place existed. And so I went all around looking for it. I went on the road looking for it. I went into a seminary looking for it, thinking that maybe I would find it in Judaism. I left one day before becoming a rabbi. I came out, I started a business in San Francisco. I started a bookstore and a cafe in the really hip part of San Francisco. Mm. And I had fun doing it, but that wasn't my life. I entered a monastery for 10 years and lived as a monk. And that was close, but being in this world didn't mean being out of this world. It meant being in this world.
Right.
And so that wasn't my heaven. I think for me, what I found finally in writing the Mosaic, and this is a subtle point, that heaven wasn't a place where I had to go to with a guy with a beard much better than mine.
Absolutely.
Heaven was that moment where there's a change of perception, where suddenly what I saw all the time, what I believed all the time that was real, suddenly I saw it differently. The same exact thing that I had always seen now was different. And to me, the magic of that moment was the heaven I was looking for.
Right.
And when I realized in the Mosaic that nothing is as it seems, nothing that we think is, it's always something different than what we see. Then what became possible? Everything became possible. And I learned that through my search for heaven brought me in the Mosaic, not to the holy men and women of the world. It brought me to the common ordinary people, to the homeless guy and the street worker,
right,
to the street artist and the waitress, to the juice man and the gardener. And I started to sit with them and wonder, why are you here? Like, what are you going to show me about heaven?
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, hold it. Let me just give them a chance to tell me who they are. And in listening to their story, what I saw is the person that I initially came up upon wasn't at all who they were. I didn't see anything about who they were.
Right.
They were completely different than the person I thought I saw. And when that happened over and over and over and over and over again, I wondered, is there anything in the world that I see the way it is? Or is everything in the world just the way I see it rather than the way it actually is?
Right.
What would happen if I slid myself out of the way? What would I actually see if I wasn't there to pervert the view of what the world looked like?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that people struggle to know themselves?
God, yeah.
That's an issue I've been having lately.
Yeah. Why? What is your, like, what, if you, like, and I mean this with all love of my heart, and please, if it comes across any way other than complete love for you, how is it possible we don't know ourselves? We're the only ones that can know ourselves.
Right.
Like, if you don't know yourself, who the heck's going to know you? If I don't know myself, let me put it on me, because I don't mean it. Right. Like, but we have to spend time getting to know ourselves.
Yeah.
My closest friend when I was with my uncle, I was friends with the richest people in the world at that period of time. My closest friend was a guy that was a billionaire also. He was the son of a billionaire too. And he and I looked and we had fun with each other thinking, what are we going to do to change this world together? And when I walked away from my uncle's home, he said, I hate you. Like, you've taken my dream away from you. How can you be so friggin' stupid to give all this up to just find yourself hitchhiking around the world? Like, what are you, crazy? I won't even talk to you anymore. You're just not the person that I thought you were. And I said, okay, you have every right to do that. And he didn't talk to me for 30 years.
Jeez.
But I was in a hotel in New York, the Mandarin Oriental, which is a really nice hotel. I was doing business there. And they were friends of mine, so they gave me a friend and family rate, which was cheaper to stay there in this exclusive, beautiful hotel than in some, bug infested place somewhere else. And the hotel has an elevator that you take to the lobby. The lobby's on the 34th floor.
Right. Okay.
And then you take an elevator to your room from the hotel lobby on the 34th floor. So I came in late one night at 10:30 at night. And by the way, the lobby overlooks Central Park, and it's gorgeous. And you sit and have drinks in the lobby, and you just see this beautiful park right in front of you. As I was walking out to come home, I saw my best friend when I was 15 walking into the elevator that hadn't talked to me in 30 years.
Huh.
And I said, Neil? And he said, who called my name? I said, I did. He said, who are you? How do you know my name? I said, wow. Neil, this is Danny. I was your best friend when we were 15 years old. Did you forget all about that? He said, no, I can't believe it, Danny. That's you? I said, yeah. He said, come on, we're going out to a club. Let's go together. Come with us to the club. And he was with some, sleazy looking girls that he were hanging all over him. And I said, I don't think that's for me tonight. It looks like you might have more fun without me. Why don't we have breakfast tomorrow?
Good choice.
So he said, no, he said, you guys go to the club without me. I'm going to just sit here with I haven't seen this guy in 30 years. He said, will you drink I have a bottle of good scotch up in my room and a couple cigars. Will you sit in the lobby here with me and drink with me and smoke cigars? I said, of course. So we sat in the lobby from 10:30 at night till 4:30 in the morning, catching up on 30 years. Wow. And he looked at me and he said, Danny, I've hated you for all this time. And I'm sitting with you now and I look at you. He said, you have virtually nothing compared to what you could have had. I have more money than God. I'm on my fourth wife. That was not her in the elevator with me, by the way. Those are the women I'm gonna, pardon me, later tonight. I have a cocaine habit.
Oh, lovely.
My kids don't talk to me. And I look at you. You have the one thing that I want. You just seem peaceful. You seem calm. You seem like you're just this happy-go-lucky guy.
Right.
I want that. And I don't know how to get that. I said, Neil, it's the easiest thing in the world. Like we got reconnected now. I'll like sit with you and we'll share it together. We'll just be together. And by being together, it'll rub off on you. He said, I'm going to call you as soon as I get home. Well, that was about 10 years ago. I haven't heard from him. So I think people really do want to know themselves. But I think they're scared to death of something. What are you scared of knowing, Justin?
I wish I knew.
You do know.
Somewhere in there. It's in there somewhere. It's going to take some...
Yeah, this isn't the time on your podcast to do it. But if you ever...
Investigation for sure.
If you ever want to do that investigation, I'd be happy to sit with you.
Okay.
Because the most beautiful world that could ever exist is the one that you're running away from.
Right.
It's the world of just knowing. And I can tell you from my own experience, I don't have a lot going for me. I'm an old fat guy sitting in California. Right? But I'm completely happy with this person.
Right.
I know exactly who I am, and I'm completely content in that. There are things that doesn't mean there aren't things that I want to make better. Of course I do.
Right.
But they don't distract from who I am. They're just little touch-ups that would make the outer package look better.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do anything to the inner package, and you just have to sit with yourself and go through some of those places where you allow yourself to escape by saying, I don't know. I wish I knew. I just don't know. Of course you know. It's some pain that is there that you don't want to sit with. It's something that if you listen to that pain and just allowed it to touch you and teach you and share with you, and you just listen to why it's there,
yeah,
it would share it with you and you'd be done with it. You don't have to carry it with you anymore.
Yeah. And that's why I'm in therapy.
Okay. Okay.
I also have a pretty regular meditation practice, so I'm pretty good with sitting with myself. I've been doing some pretty deep and self-investigation lately, and I've come to some interesting conclusions, but nothing we'll delve into at the moment.
Okay. All right. I'm here. If you have to feel what I say to people when we do work together, and this wasn't a sales call, so I don't mean it that way, but whoever you decide you want to work with to go to these intimate places in yourself,
right?
You have to feel something in them that you really trust them.
Yeah.
Because the work that we do is we take you to play. People, when I work with them, there'll be moments when they hate me, when they just when they wish they could harm me, because I won't let them get past the place where they want to run away from.
Right.
And you have to do that. If you take the responsibility of holding somebody accountable to getting to know themselves, you have to hold the space for them to get to know themselves, because they just want to run away.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know one of the things that's really been tormenting me lately is envy. I've been envious of people, why do they have that and I don't? And it's something, it's an interesting facet of my personality that I'm getting to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's great. What a beautiful place for you to sit with, and to realize that's something that you feel, and to just go into that. And instead of like what we tend to do, and I watch this in the work that I do on myself mainly, and the work that I do with other people also, we find that place that irks us, and then we think about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And we think, why do I feel this way? Instead of just sitting there and listen, like shut the mind. You meditate now.
Right.
So shut the mind off and say, envy, what is it you want to talk to me and say? What lesson are you trying to give me? What if I could shut my mind down and stop thinking, why can't I have this? Or why does this one have that? And why does this one do? What are you trying to give me? What if I would listen to you, what is it you would want to tell me? And then just listen. And it might not come right away. It might take a week. It might take a month. It might take a year. But be committed to sit with that envy in that place where you are just in complete despair.
Yeah, right.
And say, I ain't leaving until you tell me, because I know I have to get over this.
Right.
And it's not that I have to change or I have to become better. I just have to hear what it is you want to tell me.
Yeah.
Because you're telling me something.
Well, that's generally the best way to get through something is just sit in it. I mean, it's really the only way I've found.
Well, we sit in it, but don't build a house there.
Right. Don't dwell on it. Yeah.
Don't stay there.
Right.
Just go and visit it and ask it what's going on. Too many times people sit in it and build a house and forget that there's another place, any place else but there.
Right. Yeah. Well, the easiest way to get caught up in your thoughts is by chasing them. Just stop chasing them. They'll let themselves out pretty quickly.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Easier said than done, probably, but
most things are.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you said I had a really interesting life, what about it intrigued you?
Just, like you already discussed, leaving that opportunity. I really admire your decision with that. And having talked to you now, I admire it even more, having heard exactly why you chose not to do that. Like I said, I admire the conviction you have to choosing a life of peace over finances.
Yeah.
Because peace is something that money absolutely can't buy.
Yeah. I think more important than even peace, for me, peace was my central quality. That was something that was super important to me. Right. But I think we all have to find what it is that's really important to us, because what we tend to do, and rightfully so, we tend to follow the models of other people that have been successful.
Absolutely.
And those models are great. They'll help us make money, but they won't help us find fulfillment.
Right.
We have to follow the model of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't be here if we were like everybody else. There would be no reason for us to be created.
Yeah.
The reason we're here is because nobody's ever done in this world what we've come here to do. If they had, we're superfluous. We would never need to be here. So finding what it is that's yours, what about your life will have somebody read a few sentences of that sum up your life and say, boy, that's an intriguing life. I want to talk to that person.
Right.
That's the beauty of life. Because we didn't know each other. We never even had a conversation, right?
That's a fact.
And so now we're sitting, and maybe you'll never want to have another conversation with me. I understand.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But we got to take the risk. We got to go out there and we got to say, hey, I see something here, and I like something here, and let's have a conversation and talk to each other. We're too stuck in a vertical reality where we're trying to fix everybody.
Right.
Where we're trying to say, self-help, I can help you. Coaching, I can coach you. Leadership, I can lead you. Government, I can govern you.
Right.
The beauty to me of a mosaic is that it's a horizontal reality. There is no verticality in a mosaic. All the pieces are just broken pieces sitting horizontally next to one another.
Yeah.
And what makes them beautiful is not that they teach each other, but they just come together and hold each other in the space. And they know that together they can do more than they can do on their own. And when my mom and dad passed away on 4th of July, Independence Day, it took me writing the mosaic to realize they passed away on Independence Day. Independence is death. Trying to be or do everything on your own, it might be fun for a while, but it'll be the death of you. It's when we come together and do things together that extraordinary things happen.
Right.
We live in a world where everybody's trying to share what their superpowers are. I'm so bored of that world. Because when people understand how exquisite the ordinary is, how beautiful it is to just see ordinary things and really see them.
Right.
What's more ordinary than a sunrise? What's more ordinary than buds appearing on a tree when springtime comes? What's more ordinary than watching these leaves that are green turn multicolors and falling off a tree and leaving it barren and empty?
Right.
What's more ordinary than a mountain being a mountain and a river being a river? But we live a life where we tell the river to become the mountain, but there's no chance the river can become the mountain.
Yeah. 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 My issue personally is I'm a recovering addict. And I've been in recovery for almost 2 years now. So
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. My issue is I feel that old part of myself, that old addict part of myself, and the part of myself that I know that I can be, that I still have not achieved yet, kind of almost battling within myself. Not that I'm thinking about going back to using, because that's absolutely off the table. I don't even think about it anymore, but I still feel that the sensation in the body, that tension, that addict tension. And there's this other side of myself that I've kind of discovered within recovery. And I feel it's almost like a battle within me, but I need them to coalesce and exist together rather than fight each other. And I think it's creating a lot of inner turmoil at the moment. Like I said, I was in active addiction. I started drinking when I was probably like 14, 15. And then that led to using other things, cocaine, heroin, et cetera, and was a heroin addict for like 6 years. And like I said, I've been clean from everything for like 2 years, almost 2 years. So I'm really just getting to know myself, because that part of, I was so diluted by substances for so many years that I really am just now meeting myself for the first time. So it's a weird experience. It's a little painful at times.
Yeah. Well, You know something? This is going to sound, I hope this doesn't sound worse than I mean it to say, because I mean it to sound kind. Okay.
Shoot.
When you can come to the place where you see the beauty of your addiction, when you can get to the place, and I'm talking about it for myself. Look, I'm an overweight man, right? It's not because I eat that much. I eat less than my kids eat.
Right.
But I just have this feeling that I have to be, I have this feeling of shame for things that have happened. And what I'm even finding now is some of my shame comes around stories that I made up to protect myself from things that actually happened. But my shame has nothing to do with what happened. For instance, I'll tell you, my dad came in to say goodbye to me, or goodnight to me, before I went, and said goodnight and goodbye because I was about to go off to camp. And he said, I'm leaving early in the morning tomorrow, so I just want you to sleep in. I'll see you on Visitor's Day. I'm going to give you a big hug and kiss now. I want you to sleep well. Don't wake up. I'm here for you. I said, Dad, what are you, crazy? I'm not going to let you go out the door without giving you a big hug and kiss. I mean, what time are you leaving? Right. He said, I'm leaving at 4:00 in the morning. So I said, I'll be up. I'll see you. I'll give you a hug. I'll come right back to bed afterwards, but I'll come up and I'm not going to let you walk out the door without giving you a hug and kiss. No. 4:00 came and went, and I overslept. I never woke up. So I made up a story. Instead of just knowing that my dad died of a heart attack while making love to my mom, in a random world where my hero got taken from me for no reason. Right. I made up the story that if I would have woken up 4 weeks earlier to see him at 4:00 in the morning, he wouldn't have died that day. Yeah. If you ask 1 million people on the street, would my waking up at 4:00 4 weeks earlier have prevented a heart attack from my dad making love to my mom? Yeah. Nobody would say yes. Yeah. But I made up a story that made me the cause for that effect, because it made a random world that I was scared to death to live in suddenly make sense, even though it made no sense. And that story became the foundation of every other story that I tell myself in life, that if only I would have done this, then this wouldn't have happened. Right. That I was the cause for that, rather than I had nothing to do with that. Yeah. And so that addiction to that story is no different than the addiction perhaps to the drugs that you were taking. Right. But until I realized the beauty of that story, until I realized what that story offered me, I'll never be free of it. Yeah. That's me, at least. I don't know what's true for you. Yeah. Or for anybody listening.
I have a kind of, it's not really, kind of similar. It's kind of a similar story. When I was 13, I was diagnosed with acute myelogenous leukemia. Yeah. I spent about a year of my life in the hospital. During my sickness, while I was being treated and going through that, my father suffered a massive heart attack. Wow. He lived, but was never the same. You know, it was completely debilitating. It ruined him. He was never the same person.
So sorry.
He passed away 7 years later. I didn't grow up with my dad. My dad lived in another state, but you know, I would talk to him, and he would come to pick me up occasionally. Sometimes he would actually show up. Most of the time, not. But and I always held this place in myself that because I got sick, that's what caused my father's heart attack. And by proxy, I had this belief when I was younger that, like, by, you know, no fault of my own, but trust me, I took it personally and made it personal. That I had killed my father. Yeah. And I know that. Carried that for a long time.
Yeah. And that pain of that story, for me at least, I you know, thank you for sharing that, because it's like, I understand it. I understand it from your story, but I understand what your story brings in me. And that's the power of story. That's why I wrote the Mosaic in a story form, because the power of story is when we share stories, suddenly we realize the stories, though slightly different, are I hear my story and your story, and you hear your story and my story.
Right.
And so, but that isolated incident is anything but an isolated incident.
Right.
Because what I saw is, I have a developmentally delayed daughter, and if I would have only done this, she wouldn't have been developmentally delayed. Or if I would have been able to do this, she would have been able to get better. Or if she was able, it pokes its head in every corner of my life until I say, beat them all, attack them all, and I just say, get down. This isn't true. And it's hard enough to deal with stories that are real, but stories that aren't even real.
Right.
To hold yourself hostage by stories that you created that aren't even real is ludicrous.
Yeah.
But we do it
All the time.
all the time.
I think that's the place that most people exist in.
Yeah.
Is fabricated reality. Most people don't realize that their thoughts are not their reality.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Mosaic taught me a very interesting formula. And the formula was, our thoughts become our words create our stories, and our stories become our life. And if we want to change anything in that equation, we can change anything in that equation, and it all will change.
Yeah. You got a point.
And so
you're not wrong.
every once in a while, I find something I can be right about. That's good. So, the amazing thing to me is when the Mosaic told me that nothing is as it seems. Look at the conversation we're having. Yet we hold ourselves prisoner to stories that have never been real, but they sure seem real to us.
Yeah.
And how many other things that we don't even know we're doing that in. You look at the political situation in the world today, and people are so set on what they believe.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of identity politics going on right now.
Yeah. But I found it really interesting that when I listened to the Republicans speak, they said it's the Democrats that are causing all the havoc. And you got to be scared because the Democrats are the ones that will stand up and attack, and they're destroying our cities. And you listen to the Democrats and they say you got to be careful because the Republicans are vigilantes and, armed and ready for battle. Yeah. And they're saying the same thing about each other, and none of it's true. So at what point do we say enough stories? And that's the point where we start to change our life.
Yeah.
Because when our stories change, our life changes.
Yeah. It takes a lot of being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Which was difficult for me at first. So speaking from my own experience, I think it's probably difficult for most people to just be honest with themselves, because they most people do have that idea, whatever it is that they've built themselves around.
So why do you think it's difficult to be honest with ourselves?
I think for most people it's terrifying. I don't think they're going to like what they see, or at least that's their perception, is that they're not going to like what they see. But that's a thought too.
Very much. I mean, what if we fall in love with what we see?
Right.
Like, my experience has been, the more that I get to know myself, I don't have to force myself to love myself. It's easy to love myself because who I am is really somebody I love.
Right. Yeah.
And I think if we would get past the mirage that says it's so hard, or we won't like it, or we're scared of who we'll become. What are we so scared of? Who are we? Like, I'm doing work with my coach, and she said to me, all of my foundations have suddenly crumbled because they were built on stories that I thought were real facts. Right. And I realized those stories were not real. And so suddenly everything became unglued, and I'm putting my foot down on what I think is a solid foundation, and I'm standing on a wave of water that I have no idea how to stand on a wave of water. And so I go crashing into this water, and I think, oh my God, I'm really scared of that. And then she said, well, what are you scared of? I said, I don't know. I'm not scared of it. It's actually exhilarating. Like, it's really so cool to be on something that I don't know where I'm on, and be in this water that's just throwing me around and having this. If I knew I was going to be safe, I wouldn't be scared of anything. Maybe I'm scared I'm going to die, but so I die. What am I so scared of there?
Yeah.
So I'm so scared of dying that I'm not going to live my life. So I'm dead already.
Yeah. It's a fact.
And so I think it would be really beneficial for those listening, for you and me, for just in general. I know it's beneficial for me. I'm going to keep doing it. Is to start to question some of our answers. Like, we give answers and then we say that, I don't know. I just don't know. I wish I knew. Or I'm just scared. I don't know. I'm scared. Why?
Right.
Like, what are you actually scared of? What am I scared of? What don't you know that you think you should know? Like, what would happen if you slid that I don't know to the side? That wasn't available to you as an answer anymore. What would be there in front of you now?
Do you think it's just discomfort that people are scared of?
Maybe, but so what? Sit in the discomfort.
Right. I mean, that's what I always would tell somebody. I mean, that's generally my advice is the thing you don't want to do is the exact thing you probably should be doing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know that I could give that advice across the board, but
no, that's not it's not an across the board kind of thing for sure.
Right.
Definitely some limits on that one.
But if you're who says you have to be comfortable all the time?
That's exactly
right. So what? You're uncomfortable.
Yeah, people have the idea that life is just supposed to be this joy, that it's just going to be bliss all the time, and that's just not the case. People have this expectation of that, and it's not.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh, you're fine.
One of my mentors said to me, Danny, you have to celebrate every time you're uncomfortable, because that means you're on the edge of your comfort zone.
Right. And
the more you live in your comfort zone, the less life you're living. You're not taking any risks. You're not taking any chances. You have no idea. You're living a life that is just a repeat of a life that is a repeat of a life, which is a repeat of a life. So when you get uncomfortable, that's the time to celebrate. Yeah. That's the time to say, wow, what is this? What's over here that I could see? I'm scared of this place. What am I scared of? I don't know. I'm uncomfortable. What am I uncomfortable with? Oh, doing something different or seeing, what would that mean? Like, what would it be if I did something different? What does that look like for me? And there's something so magnificent in that discovery. Because it's only then when we start to grow our edges, that soon our edges disappear. In business, innovation is a big thing. Well, you know what? In life, innovation is a big thing too, but we can't be scared of it. Otherwise, we'll just be the same as we've always been.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do we do about it? What do people do?
Easy. Instead of running from it, celebrate it. Instead of thinking I shouldn't be, look, Wayne Dyer was a friend of mine.
Okay.
He said a beautiful thing one day when we were sitting at lunch together. He said, Danny, you know something? When you change the way you see the world you see changes.
Yeah.
Our perception creates our reality.
100%.
And so if we are perceiving a reality that is a reality we don't want, experiment with changing your perception. How could you see it from, like, we're looking at this one thing. You know, I love this picture that they show. It's a line drawing, a black and white drawing, that one way you look at it and it's an old hag, and the other way you look at it, it's a young socialite. You know that picture? Mm-hmm. So you know that when you look at it, you see one of the two things. You can't see both of them at the same time.
Right.
So either you see an old hag or you see a young socialite. And when you see the old hag, I remember the first time I looked at it, I saw an old hag. And my friend said, what else do you see? I said, what are you talking about? It's an old hag. And they said, can you see the young socialite? I said, what are you talking about? What are you trying to make her into something she's not? I mean, what are you, crazy? That's an old hag.
Clearly, it's an old hag.
Clearly, it's an old hag. You can't tell me that's a socialite. And they said, look at it a little bit differently. Keep looking at it until you see it differently. And suddenly, after a long time of fighting with my mind, I looked at it, and I saw the young socialite, and I couldn't see the old hag anymore. And I said to myself, oh my God, what just happened? What happened in that moment? Both those things existed in the same exact picture.
Right.
It wasn't like hocus pocus and somebody did something and it changed. It was there all the time.
I mean, that's a good metaphor for life. Because
Bingo.
They both do exist in the same exact picture.
Bingo. That's what I'm talking about.
Becomes the old hag.
Bingo. So the question is, what are we seeing that because we're seeing it is not allowing us to see what else is in the picture?
Right.
It's not like we have to become, psilocybin babies and go through an experience where we transform the way our mind perceives. All we have to do is we have to just look and say, okay, this is what I see.
Right.
How would I see it differently?
Yeah. What do you recommend for changing your focus to see it differently? Is there any exercises that you would recommend to people, or techniques, or what do you do?
So,
do you have a dedicated practice?
Absolutely. We want to make things so complicated. Things are so easy.
Absolutely.
The simplest thing in the whole world is when you see a belief system that you have, just let it go. Just look at it and say, I let you go. Because when we're filled to the brim with the things we believe, there's no room for anything else to enter into us.
Right.
And so when we become empty, which people are scared to death to do, we're scared to be empty because look at the world. Everybody walks around so full of themselves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Telling you how much they've done and how great they are and who they used to be and who they want to be and who they were.
Right.
I look at them and I say, hold on. I remember sitting with somebody I hadn't seen in 30 years, another guy. There was a friend of mine from a long time ago. He was a friend of my wife who passed away. And he said, I want to sit with you. And he looked like a homeless guy when I saw him now. And I said, what's going on? How are you doing in your life? He told me the same stories he told me 30 years prior. I said, hold on, I'm not interested in who you were 30 years ago. I knew that guy. I wasn't very much interested in him then. Why would you think I'm more interested in him now? I want to know who this guy who's sitting in front of me, who's lost his teeth.
Yeah.
Whose clothes are torn. I want to know who this guy is. I don't want you to tell me what saints you sat with and what this one told you and what this one told you.
Right.
I want to know who's this guy right here in front of me. I want to know the empty guy.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it.
Really?
So we have to sit in the we have to invite and celebrate that idea of letting go of everything we think we are and become empty again. So that this fresh new energy can come into us and fill us.
Right.
And when that fresh new energy comes in, it doesn't know all our stories. There's a character in my Mosaic book that I adore. She's called the Mirror Maker. And the story is that Mo's been walking through on his journey for a long time, and he purposely hasn't seen people for a long time. And as he's walking, he sees this village on top of a hill that's lit up. And he thinks, if I race there, I can probably find somebody. So maybe a store will still be open. And he races to the top of the hill, but by the time he gets there, all the stores are closed except for one. And he walks into the store because the door's open, but there's nobody in the store. And he wonders, should I stay at the door and wait to be invited in, or if the door's open, can I walk in? He thinks, I'm just going to walk in. And the store is a store of mirrors. So as he looks, he doesn't know if what he's seen is what he's seen, or if he's seen a reflection of a reflection of a reflection of something else.
Right.
And so he says, I got to get closer to these guys and just see what I'm seeing. And he walks up and he tries to find a mirror that he likes. And he comes upon this mirror. It's made of bronze, but the bronze is so polished that it mirrors back to him who he is. And there's a light that shines from right on it to make the reflection even brighter. Mm. And he's transfixed by it. And as he's standing and looking at the mirror, this bronze mirror, it starts to talk to him. And it starts to tell him things. And suddenly the mirror maker comes up behind him and she says, oh, I see you found the mirror you like. He said, yeah, this mirror is amazing. I've never seen a mirror like this. And she said, why is it you like this mirror? And he said, it's unique and it's original and it speaks to me. And then he thought he went too far because he didn't know if he could trust this woman to say that the mirror spoke to him. And so the mirror said, it's okay, tell her everything. Mm. And she said to him, what do you see when you look in the mirror? And he started to tell her all the stories that he had told himself when he looked at all the other mirrors. And she said, I'm sorry, Mo, that's not the question I meant to ask you. I want to know what the mirror sees when it looks at you. Mm. I'm not interested in what you see when you look in the mirror. The mirror doesn't know any of your stories. What's the mirror see when it looks at you without your stories? And Mo said, I just don't know. How would I know that? And she said, stay here with it for a little while. Talk to it and let it tell you what it sees. Mm. So for those people listening, there's been a lot of mirror work that people have said. You look in the mirror and you say, I love you, I love you, I love you. It's all well and good. But I challenge you to try this mirror work. What would your mirror see if it didn't know any of your stories? What would it see you to be? And what would you see in the mirror of the mirror that sees you as you are?
Wow. Wow. That's heavy, man. Shit,
yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah. And that's just one character in the Mosaic.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to pick that up. Okay.
I think you would love the book, actually. Honestly, I think you would.
I think you're going to have to send me a signed copy.
Yeah, I can do that too.
Sounds amazing. Where can people find you at?
I'll send you all my information if I haven't. I have all my social medias on my websites. My personal website is danielbrucelevin.com. My business website is themosaiconline.com. And if this has touched people, not just in the words that I said, but if they feel something in their heart and in their soul, because my words are only meant to occupy your mind, to allow your soul and your heart to be able to experience the experience of my heart and soul connecting to your heart and soul. The mind gets scared of that and goes, what's going on here? We got to interrupt it. And it gets fearful. So fortunately, I've been given the gift of being able to tell interesting enough stories that I'm able to occupy the minds of people so that their hearts can be touched. And it's not voodoo or magic or anything. It's just when your heart and my heart are open to each other, something happens. There's a transmission. It's like two pieces of a mosaic coming together, it's more beautiful than one piece. Yeah. And that's really the work that I do with people is I hold the space. I don't teach them anything or help them or change them or fix them. I just hold the space for them to come together with other people.
Right. It's beautiful.
Because united we stand, divided we fall. Yeah. We've learned that from the time we grew up, but look at our country. Divided we stand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I'm just now learning myself is to accept help.
Yeah.
And it took me 39 years to learn that lesson.
Dude, you should congratulate yourself. I'm 65. I'm still learning it.
It's been a slow process.
Come on, you're expecting miracles. You make me feel bad now.
Oh man, I guess that's what trust issues did for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is.
But you know something? Seriously, Justin, and I don't mean to belittle your situation or any of that. But the moment you're ready, the moment you're willing, the moment you really want to, you can let all those stories go. It doesn't, It really doesn't matter what happened to you, not one iota.
I agree. 1000%, man.
And you're sitting here now as this beautiful, radiant human being, being tied down by these stories that happened to you when you were a kid.
Right.
And there's no place for it anymore. You know, when a tree is little, you put a little fence around it to protect it from the dogs peeing on it and stuff.
Yeah.
But when a tree gets big and a little fences around it, it looks sort of stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good. That's good.
So it's time, not that you look stupid, don't get me wrong. My tree has a little fence around it too. But it's time to take that little fence down. It doesn't serve you anymore.
No.
And all you need to do, you don't need to work, you don't need to figure it out, you don't need to do anything. You just need to go, just let it go. And allow yourself to be filled with something so much greater. Allow yourself to be filled with this fresh, beautiful energy that wants you to experience the world in such a different way than you've ever experienced it before. I'm not talking only to you. I'm saying your name just because you and I are talking.
Right.
I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to everybody that's listening. I'm talking to, there's a mirror here. You don't see it.
What do you see in the mirror?
Yeah.
What the mirror seeing you?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out too. I'm not beyond it. It's just time. What I see is it's time to let go of all the pain, all the suffering. Can I tell you one more story? Do we have time?
Absolutely.
One of my other favorite characters in the Mosaic is the trash man. Mo's walking without anything on his body. He doesn't have a backpack. He doesn't have anything. Mm-hmm. He's walking in a town where the streets are perfectly clean. And suddenly he's walking and a trash truck pulls up next to him and says, "Do you have any garbage to put in the truck?" He looks at himself. He looks at the ground. He looks at and he's just about to say, "What in the hell are you talking about? I don't have anything on me. My pockets aren't bulging. The streets are pristinely clean." And he's just about to say, "What are you, crazy? Why would you stop your truck here and ask me if I have trash?" Mm-hmm. And he's about to say it, and he looks at the trash man, and he sees this glimmer in the trash man's eye. And he stops to think, well, maybe nothing is as it seems. Maybe he's not asking me about physical trash. Maybe he's asking about emotional stuff and garbage and thoughts that I had and stories that I had and limiting beliefs that have keeping me like this. And at that moment, he almost falls to his knees because he realizes, wow, I have so much of that.
Yeah.
And the trash man looks at him and says, "It's okay." He said, "I'll come and help you if you want." And he said, "I would love that." And the trash man parks his trash truck there and comes with one of his big trash cans. And he says, "Mo, take everything that hurts you. Take all your pains, all the stories that you've had from the past, everything you believe about yourself and you don't want to be, all the agony, all the suffering, all the things that say you're not good enough and you can't do it, and just put them one by one into this trash can. It's here for you. Just put them right here. Because what I want you to feel for one moment is the exquisite lightness of your being when all that garbage is in this can, not walking around inside you. I want you to feel what it feels like to not carry that anymore. And it's right here. If you want it back, you can have it back.
Who would want it back?
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised how many people do.
Yeah.
And even if we don't want it back, 10 minutes later, we start to recreate it again because we're used to it.
Yeah, that's true.
But I have a meditation on the mosaiconline.com. If you go to my blog,
okay,
you'll find the Trash Man meditation there.
Awesome.
It's about a 20-minute meditation, and just let that meditation come into your soul.
Awesome.
Just do the work that it's asking you to do. You don't have to do anything except empty it all out of you.
Right.
And allow yourself to feel the beautiful lightness of being when you're no longer carrying that shit.
Yeah, wow. That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. This has been a fucking amazing conversation. I've really enjoyed this very much.
Me too. I love you, brother. You're a good guy.
Love you too, man. And I appreciate you.
Thank you. Me too. Keep up the great work you're doing.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. We'll stay in touch for sure.
I hope so. I look forward to it.
Definitely. Thanks again to Daniel Bruce Levin, and thanks again to all of you for listening. If you do enjoy the show, I have a donation button on my website at dharmajunkiepodcast.com, and donations are definitely accepted to keep the podcast running, because I do intend to keep it free forever and not charge anything ever. I mean, not that most podcasts do, but it does cost money to put out. So if you could donate, it would be awesome. I also accept Cash App. It's Dharma Junkie. So if you feel like it, throw a dog a bone. Anyway, if you do have the time, also rate, review, and like the show. It's much appreciated. Thank you all for your support. Namaste.
Chaos is beautiful.